How you doing, guys? I had a most excellent suggestion by one of my subscribers, who I should know the name of, but I'm not technologically adept enough to figure it out. Anyway, just contacted me and said, "Do you have a list of martial arts related audiobooks that I listen to, I have listened to?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." I actually listen to a lot of stuff that you might not be considered like martial arts related. There's a lot of audiobooks I listen to about psychology and I guess pseudo spirituality, psychology, a lot of leadership stuff. So like Jocko Willink would be in there, but he's also a jiu-jitsu black belt. So like, does that count? Anyway, so I made my little list and it's going from most recent because like that's the order it was in my audiobook list. So I just wrote them down. So Opening Closed Guard, I've only just started it. It's by Robert Drysdale, and the book that I read first, apparently this was his first book, and apparently he's made it into a documentary or short film, but I haven't looked up that yet. So Opening Closed Guard is his foray into, I know Robert personally, not very well, I've met him a couple of times, but he's got an interest, his fascination, past qualifications, etc., degrees maybe, were in history and research and things like that. So it's not surprising that him doing jiu-jitsu for that long then decided to do a deep dive on the history of jiu-jitsu, because I only know the history of, for example, the Gracie family primarily because I'm good friends with a lot of the guys and been around them for a long time. And not just them, but like, a lot of their friends as well, I've been friends with for a long time. So when certain things get brought up in books or movies or documentaries and stuff like that, about certain time periods and things that went on, then I'm kind of fortunate to kind of have a bit of a little bit of an understanding as to what went on, because the truth is always the third part, right? There's always two parts telling their story, and then the truth is somewhere in between. But anyway, interesting that Robert decided to go do this. So Opening Closed Guard is kind of the start of that. I only started listening to that today, probably like an hour in. And so his second book, The Rise and Evolution of BJJ, that's apparently his second book, but I listened to that first. And that, it sounds like it's a very much a Carlson Gracie promo audiobook. Like every second word in it is Carlson Gracie, quite literally. I'm not even exaggerating. So I do think it's kind of a little bit biased. I'm not super familiar with Carlson's side of the family. Anyway, it's most likely all true. Who am I to dispute it? But yeah, it does sound a little bit biased for sure. I can see why he's getting some flack over that. Another book that I've listened to is Worth Defending by Richard Bressler, and it kind of makes me emotional thinking about it, because he's just got out of hospital a couple of days ago. He's got some sort of a liver thing or something like that, and if you've listened to his book, you'll probably understand why. It's an incredible book, and like I spoke to him for like 6 hours a few months ago on the phone, or video chat, and he's an incredible human being. He's done an amazing thing. This book is going to be his legacy that he's left behind. He's very, very sick, and he rang me the other night, and I actually thought it was going to be like the last conversation that he ever has with someone. It was very late at night. He was reaching out on Facebook for somebody to talk to, and I told him, hey, give us a bell. And he gave me a yell, and So anyway, I love Richard. Amazing guy, incredible book. It's an amazing story, and told very truthfully, very raw, and it's an amazing book. So Worth Defending by Richard Bressler has to be one of the top in your list. So make sure you buy that. He needs every cent he can get at the moment for his medical bills, and that's not a shallow promotion for him. Like, he's a genuinely good guy. Next on my list was Breathe by Rickson Gracie. So I met Rickson, actually I met Kron first in Rio, because I was there for months every year kind of thing. So I ran into Kron first, and you know, he was kind of a kid. I guess he was like 14 or something. Anyway, not long after that, I stayed with one of Rickson's best friends in Rio every year. So so I do a little bit of a prank when I meet famous people, especially in the jiu-jitsu community, because I haven't got time to muck around and find out if people are truthful or not. So I generally pretend I don't know who they are and act a little bit obnoxious, just to see, like, who is this person in front of me. So I started at Bruno's place, and he told me, hey, Rickson's coming round, I'm going to have a shower. If he comes to the door, just let him in. And I'm all right, cool. So I played a prank on Rickson. First of all, I only opened the door a little bit, and I told him to wait there. I was quite abrupt about it, because, like, Rio's a dangerous place. And yelled out to Bruno, hey, man, there's some guy here. He's like, yeah, let him in. And I pretended like I had no idea who he was. I'm like, hey, man, like, you're kind of a good-looking dude. I bet you get a lot of fights. You should learn jiu-jitsu for sure, you know. And he goes, oh, you know, like, you do jiu-jitsu? I'm like, yeah, I'm the Australian champion. I'm here to win the worlds and all this kind of stuff, being really obnoxious. And he goes, cool, man, I think you'll do really well. Like, you seem very confident. And I said, you should do he goes, I do a little bit of jiu-jitsu. Like, he wasn't, yeah, he has to be the most humble person I think I've ever met, right? And it was hilarious, because eventually Bruno comes into the room and sees what I'm doing and is asking me, what are you doing? You know who this is. And then when Rickson found out that I was aware the whole time, the whole thing was just play, he thought it was quite funny. We spent some time at the beach that afternoon hanging out. Genuinely good guy. I'm a big fan of Rickson. So he did Breathe, and then he did Comfort in Darkness. So they were planning, I guess Breathe was really successful. It's a really amazing book. And they were going to do like a Breathe Part 2, like a second book. But then when Rickson's Parkinson's, diagnosis came out, then they pivoted very strongly, and they did this book more about his, like, when you're looking at death, like, how are you going to approach it? Like, when you know you have a terminal illness, you know, like, maybe not like any other adversity. I was going to say like any other adversity, but it's not true. Like, that's the ultimate adversity to be facing, is your death and your imminent death. And so, you know, and also knowing that, you know, Parkinson's is a gradual thing. It's not like that. And he'll know the degradation that's ahead of him. He knows the path. And that's what it's about. It's about how do you face that path, knowing that it's inevitable, and do you just give into it and give up and quit and stuff like that, or do you go, you know what, there's more I could be doing for my health. I could tidy up some bits. I could do more for my mind. I'm going to fight this thing because I'm a fighter and I've fought all my life, and I'm a fighter. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fight, and I'm going to fight with everything I have. And so he's approaching it the same way that he would any of his fights. Yeah, super strict diet, very strict mental regime, you know, training. Anyway, incredible book, incredible person. I'm a big fan of Rickson for sure. The next book that was on my list is Endure by Cam Hanes. And I don't know if he does martial arts. He runs and shoots bows really well, right? So he's like an endurance runner. And he's like a good friend of Joe Rogan's. That's kind of how everyone found out about him. And he's a very famous bow hunter. So Endure by him is what it sounds like. You know, his father was an alcoholic, and I'm sure that him not wanting to repeat that, but likely feeling the genetic pull from the alcoholism, then his way is to redirect. that pull. That's what I think is going on. In the same way that when I had a crazy dog and he had a strong prey drive, rather than let him attack dogs, I just redirected the prey drive towards the tennis ball, and he didn't attack dogs anymore. He just wanted a tennis ball. So that's what I think Cam Hanes is probably doing with this drive, this feeling of addiction, and him going, you know what, I have to feed this thing, and I'm going to make it a positive addiction. And he does. This dude runs for 2 days, 3 days at a time, lifts all day. Very good friends with David Goggins. And it was a really funny story because David Goggins and Cam Hanes got together one day, and their wives caught up beforehand and go, right, we're going to have to put some rules on this thing because there's a good chance these guys are going to kill each other, right? Like, kill themselves by competing against each other with endurance stuff and fitness stuff. Like, they're cut from the same cloth. Like, they are the same kind of person. And yeah, so that was very funny. Anyway, onwards. More coconut water. Lo and behold, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins was next. Incredible book. Can't Hurt Me and Never Finished, right? So Can't Hurt Me, I think, is this first book. Never Finished his second. He's probably got more, but I've only listened to 2. That's enough. For me, it's really incredible, his story, going from being like a really, really overweight, unqualified, self-abusive dude, black guy, and then he decides he wants to be a fucking Navy SEAL. Right? He's just like, I'm going to do this thing. And just nothing could stop him. And he's not just done that. He's done like Ranger School. He might have done Delta as well. He's done, they've got the parachuting dudes. What do they call them? Shit, there's a special part of the military where they like rescue helicopter parachuting dudes. Anyway, it's a really big deal, and he's even got that qualification. That made him fall in love with like fire jumping guys. He did a couple of seasons of fire jumping, I think in California, jumping into wildfires. He's a crazy dude. Yeah, very interesting books from a very interesting person. If ever I want to go out and run to hurt myself, then that's what I'll listen to. So, I as you guys know, it's been quite the journey for me. And I still struggle with putting limitations on myself. I don't like going out running and going, okay, well, I've only got like an hour. I better shortcut this and head back and get in time because I've got to get to jiu-jitsu class. I hate that. I like to be able to just run until I can't run anymore and swim until I can't swim anymore, and then try and make my way back to the car and fall in a big heap. So that's emotional training, if you haven't figured it out, and I've been doing my best not to do that. And so my body's responding. Yeah, it's liking me back now. So Never Finished and Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. They're awesome if you want to learn about setting goals and just doing the fucking work. That's how he would put it. He's like, just do the fucking work. Who's going to carry the boats? Might as well be you. Don't rely on others. Do the work. Becoming a Black Belt by Roy Dean. Like, I've never met Roy. I've heard about him a lot. And he's a really interesting cat. His whole philosophy, he started off in Japanese jiu-jitsu and judo and stuff like that. And I think that's really good because it kind of sets you up with this like honor, loyalty, respect, bowing. Everything's got to be just this right way. I think it's a really good thing in the martial arts. I think that jiu-jitsu is kind of losing that with all the crazy coloured rash guards and birimbolos and I don't know, all the other crap that goes on these days. Anyway, so Becoming a Black Belt by Roy Dean is his journey through the martial arts, finding jiu-jitsu, how he goes about grading people. His black belt gradings are like works of art. Like he films them all. He films most of the gradings, but he gives people below black belt the option to not film them or whatever. But anyway, most of his black belts, they film it. They go to this incredible location and turn it into a really super special event. And he moves like a cat, man. Like, he's super smooth. He's really into yoga all his life, and yeah, just moves beautifully. Really, yeah, very nice. Seems like a very nice guy. The Way of the Fight by George St. Pierre. Now, that's a little bit, I don't know. Even if something I learned about listening to audiobooks is if I don't like it, then I just persist, because, and I've listened to some really painful ones, there's some I haven't been able to get through yet, but like some are really painful at the start, like they just, I can't stand this guy's voice, or, whatever it happens to be, but I've learned to really persist through them, because I guarantee you'll get to the end of it, and at the very least you've learnt resilience in yourself, right, and tolerance, because you've listened to this stuff for hours and hours and hours that you weren't into. But there's often like gold in there is, like, so even if I don't like the start of it, like I found, I don't know, I don't know George, and I think that he doesn't let a lot of people know who he is. He's got all his sponsors, and the way that he decided to kind of create an illusion of who he was, for the UFC and stuff like that, was one thing. And I don't really like that. I get it, but I'm big on authenticity, and I get that by being truly authentic, like, you're not going to make the billions of dollars, and I get it. But anyway, I just felt the book kind of told his story a little bit from the other side, which was kind of refreshing, because he's always this clean-cut Kyokushin karate guy with his white gi and his French accent and his ripped abs, and he's really nice, and he says all the right things, and you just never see him get married, or there's no girlfriends, there's no personal life, you don't hear about any of it. Everybody just thinks he's gay, and it was refreshing in the book to not to find out that he wasn't gay. I couldn't care less about that, but it was the fact that, like, he's got some stuff going on, right? And doesn't really like attachment, doesn't do good at that. So yeah, it's again, like, to me, it's kind of obvious that he's just pouring his heart and soul into trying to be perfect, and thinking that by being, he was bullied a lot as a kid, which kind of started the whole thing. And I think that you've got to you got to look back at that stuff and process it a bit, so that you can learn to relax. Not that there's anything wrong. Well, I guess depends on your journey, right? Like, do you want to be happily married, find a partner, settle down, train a little bit less, do some teaching, whatever? Obviously, he doesn't. He's just like full on, all about him, and that's his thing. He does it very well. Trains like a maniac. Has all the very best coaches. Refreshing to hear about him going out partying and having a bit of fun and being less of a robot. That was nice. The Business of Martial Arts by Gordon Bircham. That's more about the business sides of things, and you just got to listen to it if you're a martial arts business owner. It's a good listen, and when I very first started teaching again, then I listened to that just for some inspiration and stuff like that. Ticks all the boxes, tells you what you need to know. Yep, decent book. The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. If you listen to my Black Belt Therapy videos, then you're probably very familiar with me talking about Scott Peck. The Road Less Traveled was the first book, or actually the only book I think that was ever recommended to me by any of the psychologists or psychiatrists that I've spoken to. And it was the very first shrink I saw was when I was at high school, when Mum thought I was crazy because I wanted to train for the Olympics. Anyway, that one aside, I went to see a psychiatrist. I didn't realize he was. I went for a cough in my throat, met the guy, da-da-da. Anyway, so I went back to him after bad relationship breakup to talk about things. And he was by far the best shrink that I've ever spoken to. Was very caring, didn't talk about medication at all, very interested in changing behavior and being very honest and straightforward. I really liked it. And so he suggested a book for me called The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. And it's a really cool story because, like, Scott was a very, very famous psychiatrist and frustrated with the clientele that, well, the only people that could really afford him were like mega wealthy people, you know. And one day after work, he met another shrink at the pub, and they're having a chat, and he's like, you know, like, how's your day? He's like, oh man, like, this is not what I did psychiatry for, helping billionaires decide where they should holiday and stuff. He goes, it's not what I really wanted to do. And his friend says, well, why don't you write a book? And he goes, I haven't got time. And he goes, well, why don't you make it a really short book? And he goes, people won't understand what we're talking about. He goes, well, why don't you just write it in layman's terms? A small, short, layman terms book about how to figure yourself out, how to be more self-aware. And so he did The Road Less Traveled. There's another book called Further Along the Road Less Traveled, and there's another one called People of the Lie. The Road Less Traveled is awesome until the last chapter, when it gets kind of religious. And for me personally, I don't like religion and psychology mixing. They kind of do a little bit by nature, but I'm not a fan of them mixing. Anyway, so the last chapter gets a little bit too into Christianity and all that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but personally, I think it spoiled a great book. Further on, The Road Less Traveled goes more into the whole God-demon thing, and then People of the Lie is like full-on devil stuff. So I didn't enjoy that at all. Not a fan of it. Wouldn't recommend it. But The Road Less Traveled is an incredible book, bar the last chapter, unless you're into that. I probably wouldn't be here without it. That's the truth. And I've bought many, many copies and given them to friends and stuff like that. And friends of mine carry them around in their bag and read it religiously. Excuse the pun. It's really a refreshing book. You can once you've read it, you can just turn to any page and start reading. And it just keeps you on track. You know, it's so easy to, I guess it makes you kind of build a moral framework for your life. And then you know, like once you've kind of decided like who you are and what you stand for, it makes you be responsible, or it provides you with the tools to see that you are responsible for stepping outside of that. Yeah. So it's an incredible book. I think everybody should read it. It's a really, really super useful book. Taught me a lot about myself and a lot about other people in a really simple way. So anyway, that's the books. Opening Closed Guard by Robert Drysdale. The Rise and Evolution of BJJ by Robert Drysdale. Worth Defending by Richard Bressler. Love you, Richard. Breathe by Hickson Gracie. Comfort in Darkness by Hickson Gracie. I hope he fights this Parkinson's for a very long time. I want him on earth for a very long time. He's a very good guy. Endure by Cam Haines. Never Finished by David Goggins. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Becoming the Black Belt by Roy Dean. That's a really interesting book. He's an interesting dude. Way of the Fight by George St. Pierre. If you like MMA and George and Kyokushin Karate, you'll probably love it. The Road Less Traveled. I recommend everybody listen to that, read. The audiobook for that for me, I guess because I read the book for so long that listening to the audiobook and having someone's voice, because I had another voice that I pictured, and then when I started listening to it, it was the guy that wrote the book, but it just, I don't know, for me it was weird. And then The Business of the Martial Arts by Gordon Bircham, you know, and there's probably 100 million books on martial arts business out there, because most martial artists are not great businessmen, because we care too much about people and we want to spend our time on the mat training with people and helping people, and we're often not very good with numbers and don't like looking at books and don't like that kind of thing. Anyway, so thank you very much to whoever made the suggestion about the audiobooks, and there could possibly be more, but that's the list that was in my audio thing from Audible. Yeah, and that's just kind of the martial artsy ones. Again, anything by Jocko Willink is incredible. I love him as a leadership coach and stuff like that. There's heaps out there. Enjoy your running, stay safe, and let me know what you think of the audiobooks. Cheers, guys. Bye.